how to deal with the nested tables and working with some. Have you practiced those layouts? Huh? Have you practiced those layouts? Have you worked with them? Yeah, good. Right. Were you able to achieve them? Able to achieve them? Right. Good. Fine. So, because if we can practice all these, then we can do more better and easy with the styles CSS like concept. Yeah. Next, after understanding about how do we work with tables, now today we are going to learn about working with forms. We are going to discuss about forms in HTML. How do we deal with the forms in HTML? Working with forms in HTML. Actually, this is very important for future when we are dealing with server side interactions, dynamic pages, and all. Here currently we are designing forms, but later we will able to implement and work with the functionality of the forms also. Technically, what is a form? Actually, form is a container. Form is a container with a collection of elements like buttons, text box, checkbox, radio, etc. Radio, drop down list, etc. So many will be there. It is a container with collection of several elements. Actually, form provides an UI from where user can input values. You can simply say that from where user can view, insert, update, and delete the data from any backend data source. Backend data source. The backend we will see that view, insert, update data. So form UI types of allows all type data manipulations on handles interactions like login, like register, etc. All these are managed by using this. Forms update the values, delete the values, the interactions, tell the interactions. So, for example, suppose we are opening some website, some Amazon website. In an Amazon, I need to search for products. You can see there is a form for searching the products. We have a text box, we have a drop down, and we have a search button. This is a form with, of course, searching, showing the search results. All these we have to write through JavaScript and server side. Here in HTML, we can only design it, but functionality will come later. Allows such interactions. So if you click on the options like sign in, what contains basic rules designing the form. Let's so form is collection of different types of elements. Form is a collection of different types of elements. So every document can have multiple forms, and every form can have multiple elements. In DOM hierarchy, forms is a collection. In DOM hierarchy, forms, how it will be, window, in that window, document, in that document, forms. Forms is a collection in DOM hierarchy. And elements in window, we have document, in forms. In the forms, we have elements. Elements is an array. So that is the hierarchy of forms and elements in DOM structure, document object model, right? I given you the DOM structure. In the DOM structure, this is the hierarchy. So that is how the contents are organized and how the contents are defined, how they are managed. So form is a container. So it comprises of all this. I told you already in the beginning about the DOM hierarchy. Learn in JavaScript and all. You can, the parent is in the window we have a document. In the document we have forms. We have elements. So in elements you will have all these elements. Button, checkbox, and all these elements. That is the hierarchy. That is technically the concept of form actually. How it is going to work, how we are going to design the form. Let's see that part. What actually it comprises of. And to create form, so what are the options available? So HTML provides the following elements for designing form. What are the elements provided for designing the form? So we have One by one detailedly we will learn the list. We have a form, we have input, we have select, we have option, we have OPT group. So we have a text area, we have meter, we have progress, all these. These are all the important elements for designing the form. These are all the important elements for creating the forms, configuring and creating and designing the forms, right? Now we need to understand how do we deal with them, how do we work with them, how to handle and how do we work with these options. So one by one we will see how these are used, how they are configured and defined, right? So generally the form options, the form features, the main container is actually the form element. The form element. So form element. Actually, what is this form element? I will show you one simple example. Suppose I opened some options here. Let's see some options. Yeah. We opened a format. Yeah. Generally, you observe carefully here. So when I opened this screen, when I opened that screen, so in the screen, you can see that in the screen, you can see so many controls are present. So many controls are present. Actually, you can see this is the control. So that is the control. And that is called text box. So we call it as a text box. Text box. This is the control. This is called as a list box. So this is a list box. So we have text box, we have list box. So these are, you know that these are buttons. We have buttons. We have text box, we have list box, and we have buttons configured there. We have buttons. We have buttons. So we have drop down all these. Now, if you observed, all these are present in a container. So they are all present in this container. You see, this is the container, and that is actually form. That is actually form. So form is a container. It acts as a stage. So anchors all your components, all your components. So technically, so form is a container. So technically, so form is a container that comprises of elements comprises of elements. Very important is HTML page can submit the data of elements only when they are defined in form container. That is very important. Now, without form container also, you can write elements. But HTML page cannot submit that data. HTML page can submit the data only when the elements are present in a form. So it's important every time that you keep your information in a form. You keep all the information in a form. all the elements in the form. So page cannot submit the data if there are no elements defined inside the form, and if you configure the elements outside the form. So form comprises of, technically form comprises of all the data, comprises of all the data. So form can submit the data of elements, right? So form actually collects the data, collects the data from various elements and submits their value, submits or resets their value, or resets their value. So submits or resets their value. That is the basic approach of form, how they can manage it. It collects the data from various elements and submits or resets their value. That is the approach. So how it can submit? What are the attributes? What are the various options for the form? We will see how to design the form and what are the various attributes of the form. Syntactically, the form is defined in this way. Syntactically, the form is configured in this way. We have form, and here form elements we have to keep, and close the form. That is the container. What are the attributes required for the form element, and how do we use those attributes? Let's see. So let's open and design a simple page called register.html. Okay. First, I'm creating a simple document with forms. Okay. In the body section, we are configuring some details. So here the first point is, the first important is, I will show you one basic example. Later detailedly we will discuss. Other elements, don't worry about other elements, I will show you. Suppose we have name. We have a text box and we have a button, submit. And you can see text box is having a name as username. Okay, later I will tell you about text box, button and all, don't worry. Currently I'm just showing you. You can see there is a form in the page. I entered some details inside that. I clicked on submit. It is unable to submit. That means you cannot submit this data. Let's do one thing. We keep this inside a form. We keep this inside a form in a container. Now when you keep this in a form, and I entered some details, so John, and submit, it is able to submit the data. You can see in the URL, username is submitted as John. So it is mandatory that the elements must be in a form. Generally, sometimes elements are designed without form. That intention is only to handle them in client-side JavaScript. That means if you want to handle them only client-side, not posting data to server, then you can directly design. But in a real world scenario, that is not the point. In real world scenario, all we design the forms for submitting to server. So it is important to configure. It is important to define. It is important to define form element here. Form element here. Don't worry about this input and all that we are going to learn. We are discussing about the first form element. So it is mandatory. Without that, you cannot configure. And form element. So form element is provided with a set of attributes. Form element is provided with a set of attributes. It is provided with a set of attributes. So what are various attributes of form element? These are very important. We have to detailedly know about them. Let's see, what are the basic attributes for the form element? The basic attributes for the form element. The basic attributes for form element, you can observe the attributes for the form. So let's give an attribute and description. Okay. So here, the key attributes. The first important attribute is form can have the options like ID. Form can have option like name, can have ID, and it can have name. It can have name, and form can have class. These three are common for every element that you are defining in HTML page: an ID, name, and class. So form can be configured with an ID, name, and class. The situations we know actually form ID, the purpose of the ID. So ID is nothing but it is used to configure a unique reference name. So unique means there can be only one ID. There can be only one form by that particular name. Name, it is used to configure a reference name, which can be common for multiple forms. For many forms, you can give the same name. Multiple forms. ID must be unique, and a class. So actually, it is used to configure multiple references. So for form, multiple references means one form can have several names. You can access anyone. Actually, we use in JavaScript, we can use in CSS. Class is not only for CSS. You will learn in styles. You will learn in JavaScript how to use these classes in CSS. So one element can have several references, multiple references for form. So that is these three options. Generally, we can have an ID, we can have a name, we can have a class. So generally, that is for referring. Currently, they will not have any effect until or unless you refer them in your scripting coding. So ID, name, and class. These are the options. For example, see here. Suppose I'm configuring here. So an ID. Usually, while giving the IDs, while giving the names, as per the coding standards, we need to follow some rules. What are the rules we have to follow is actually ID and name. So we have to use always. So a note I will give here. When you give the names, always, always use camel case, camel case, camel case for naming. Always use camel case for naming. It is a programming rule actually, and it is according to standardizations. Always you have to use camel case for naming. Camel case is nothing but generally camel case looks like this actually. First, it will start with a lowercase FRM, and then it comes with a uppercase. So like this it will be. So TXT, some name, OPT, some gender, like this. These are called camel case. It is mandatory because in the project we have to follow the correct rules and traditions. You cannot write by yourself. You have to follow certain traditions. You have to follow certain rules. And for that, you need to know about this. And observe carefully. The prefix lowercase should tell what object it is. And the suffix name should tell for what purpose it is. FRM indicates it is a form, and register indicates it is a form for registration. TXT indicates it is a text box for name. OPT indicates it is an option for gender. Or BTN indicates it is a button for submit. So first three characters lowercase should tell what type of object it is, element what type it is, and the suffix should tell for what purpose it is. That is the programming rule actually. We have to follow these rules. You can write in any way you want, it doesn't matter. But if you don't follow these rules, that means you are violating the project rules, and your code will be rejected every time when it is verified by your testing team. Why? Because then your code analyzers softwares will be there, code analyzing softwares. Those code analyzing softwares will show all these as errors in the analysis. Then you have to correct. Code analyzers will be there. So many code analyzers will be there. For example, in real world, our companies will follow code analyzers like PMD. PMD is a code analyzer. You can see it is a code analyzer. So you can download this PMD and use in your application editors, so that while writing the code, it will tell you the rules for that code. You can see the documentation also here. Go to documentation. You can see in the documentation, rule reference will be there. So developer documentation will be there. Project documentation will be there. So rules for the project management, rules for development, building, the rules for development, and the rules for the language, Java rules and all these JSP rules. Rule reference, you see Java, XML, so ECMA, all the rules will be there. And when you select the rules, so you can see that best practices, and you can see that they will tell you the rules, how to follow them. I will tell you one simple option. You can see, suppose I will go to coding style. In that you can see that. So there is an option like if and else statements. And you can see that in if and else statement, it says that if you write an if condition, so like this with flower brace, that is okay. If you write without flower brace, that is bad. But generally, when you learn programming, your faculty will tell that you can write if condition without a flower brace. One statement will execute. But that is bad coding. That is not shortcut. That is completely bad coding. Better never do that when in real world. That is bad coding. Who says it is bad coding? People who developed the language, they say that is bad coding. The language analyzers will say that is bad coding. Then why you are following? It is not shortcut. It is waste of time. Why? Because if you don't use a flower brace and you write a logic, how compiler knows where to start, where to end? It will take some time to understand. If you put a flower brace, it exactly knows where to start, where to end. It is more better to understand. So we should not confuse the compilers. We should give more facilities to them so that they can easily compile. It will speed up the compilation. This is generally required, very common thing actually. So that is the reason while giving the names, you follow this tradition. For specially, when you are giving the names for specially, you have to follow this tradition for ID names and all. Okay. And generally, so later you will see other rules also. These three are used for reference. So ID, I will give FRM register like this. I can use a name as FRM register. I can use a class as some form login, a form register, or I can add multiple also. I can define multiple classes also. So effects. That means, or suppose I said a form inline like this. We are adding. How these classes are used, we will see when we learn about CSS and all. We will discuss about that. But initially, that is how you can define the IDs, the names, the classes. Now, class can have multiple references. What you can do is you can use in JavaScript and CSS to access them. Generally, how we can access here is style. I am using classes are accessed by using dot a form register, and this class will have width as some 300 pixels and height as some 200 pixels, or simply height I will not give, it will adjust according to the content. Okay, and currently we don't have any content, so I will give the height. Okay, and we have border as 2 pixel and solid like this. And we have another class called, so we have another class for the same form called form inline. And the form inline will have a different effect called display. I will keep display as flexible display. Later you will learn CSS. That is actually the intention here. You can see flexible display. This is the text box, this is the submit button, height adjusted because we said flex. Then height I give as some 50 and it adjusts the height accordingly. This is name, this is text box, this is submit button. And for the form, so we give padding. padding is some 20 pixel, and you can see the padding will come here. So this is the text box, this is the button. That is just designing, right? So that means we are using the classes. IDs also can be used for styles, CSS, but usually the IDs for styles or for referring them in the logic. IDs and names are used for referring in the logic. In JavaScript and jQuery, we use these IDs and we will see how to utilize them. Initially, this is just a basic point how we can design the content. Just one example I will give here. But don't worry about what is the concept of input text box and all that we will learn later. Currently, we are just taking this example only to understand these three properties, that is ID, name, class and all. So that is an example for that. So how you can configure ID, name and class. That is one important attribute. The next important attribute for the forms, after understanding these three basics. So these are for references, important attributes. And this is the major attribute actually. The attribute that is required for form is method. Method. So this is very important to understand. A lot of points are there. So it specifies the HTTP verb. It specifies the HTTP verb. It specifies actually HTTP verb HTTP verb defines the type of action to be performed by form. The type of action to be performed by form. Actually, so the common HTTP verbs, the commonly used HTTP verbs are, so the commonly used HTTP verbs. So we have get, we have post, we have put, we have delete. These are all the HTTP verbs. So many are there. Purge. So many are there. So many verbs will be there. Lot of verbs will be there. So technically, what is all these verbs in later stages in working with server-side technologies, you will understand them. Initially in HTML, every HTML form is designed with two important verbs. One is two important verbs. One is get and post. Get and post. What is difference? What is the purpose of these actually? In simple point, so get is for fetch details, and actually post is for submit details, and put is for so modify details, and delete is for so remove details. These are enough for you to understand. Even not required. Currently you need only two, get and post. Others you can manage in later stage. So that means what a form have to do, that is defined by using this method. So usually by default every form. So by default, every form uses get method. Uses get method. So every time by every form by default uses get method. Actually, the get method is used to fetch information from server. To fetch information from server. To access information from server, we use get. To send information to server, we use post. So form is designed with the get and post usually. That is the primary methods. Now in interviews, so questions will come like, so by default it is doing it. So in interviews the question comes, the frequently asked question. So in interview is, the question is, can we submit data to server on post on get method, actually on get method. Can we submit data to server on get method? Now answer is yes. You can submit data to server on get method. So but not recommended. Why not recommended? Why it is not recommended? You can submit on get, but not recommended. Why not recommended? For that we need to understand the difference between get and post. This is a very big concept. So we need to understand the difference between get and post. What is difference between get and post? And when developer have to use them? This is a key concept here. So let's see one simple example for this here. One simple example, difference between get and post. What is difference between get and post actually? Suppose I'm configuring here, so get and post. Let's see what are the differences between get and post. Practically also, you can just observe this difference actually. First point is, so when you submit data on get request, so when you submit the data on get request, the data will be appended into URL of browser, into URL is appended into URL as query string. Data will be appended into URL as query string. I will show you that. What is query string? I will show you that. That means here the data will be appended to URL as query string. If data is appended into URL as query string, that means, so it is visible in address bar. It is visible in address bar. Every user can view your data. That means here the point is, it is not safe. Another point is, data is stored in browser logs. That is in history, in browser history. That means even you close the browser, anybody can see what you have submitted. So even you clean the history, so data can be bookmarked, bookmarked. You can bookmark the data. Then even you delete, you can access and use the bookmarks. Even you delete from bookmarks, bookmarks can be exported to our emails. A lot of problems will be there. So the concept here is it is not safe of submitting the data. And another point is you cannot submit complex data like binary type data, that is like images and all, binary type data, images, graphics, all such type of graphics, all such type of data. You cannot submit all such type of data. That means you can submit max, you can submit ASCII, right? So ASCII type data, ASCII type values. You can submit only ASCII type values. So ASCII type values, ASCII codes, we will discuss about that. ASCII type values and ASCII type codes, we will see that, right? And you can submit only, that means maximum 2048 characters of data can be submitted. Actually, it varies according to browser capability, according to browser. But this is the standard size of data that you can send actually. But some browsers can send large amount of data, like Opera, Firefox. Firefox can send 65,535, and Opera can send 1,90,000. That depends on browser, but this is the standard limit. This is the standard value, how much you can submit. So these are all the restrictions of GET. But what is advantage of this GET is, so you can cache the data. Cache is nothing but store in buffer. What is advantage of caching the data? So that frequently used data can be accessed from cache. So cache memory, that means it saves round trips. What are round trips? I will show you, we will discuss. Round trip means again allocating memory, again getting the value. That is what actually round trip is. These are all the problems with GET request. So always use GET request. These are the problems with GET request. I will show you. See, I am defining this form. So let's keep this form. Yeah, let's keep this form in this way. Okay, some 30 or 20 some form, and you can see that in this form. So we are typing some value. Okay, we are typing some value. Suppose think that this is password, and here I will give txtpwd, that is password. And you see here, so here I will give the text as password. Now I will type the password here, suppose some password, and I click on submit. You can see that the data is appended in the URL. as query string, question mark and value, that is called query string. And you can see that anyone can view the data. And if anyone can view the data, so every user can view the data. If every user can view the data, then here it is easy to hack the data. It is easy to hack the data. So actually, if you think that I will close the browser, but this will be in browser history. In the browser history, it is going to keep that information. So manage history. It is going to keep that information related to the forms. Whatever you are dealing, it will keep that information. It is easy for handling. You can see that keep the information. From browser history, if I click, it will get it. Even if you clean from browsing history, I can even bookmark the data. So afterwards, I can access that complete data actually. This is not good. This is not good. And here, maximum how many characters you can submit? 2048 characters. Now, how you can submit any photo here? Only path you can submit, not binary type data. There is limit for data. But one advantage is these values are in the memory temporarily. You can access and use them any number of times without requesting from server every time. It will reduce the burden. It will reduce the burden. So on GET request, data will be in query string. Remember this point. On POST request, what is the POST request? So what happens on the POST request? Actually on POST request, so technically what happens on POST request? On POST request, so the data will be, the data will be in a form message body. The data will be in form message body. So it is not visible to user. It is not visible to user. So it is not visible to user. So that means actually it is stored. It is stored. You can say here it is stored. It is stored in form body. It is stored in form body, and it is not visible to user. It is not visible to user. So difficult to hack data. Difficult to hack data. So it is safe when compared to GET. But anything is not complete safe. Some drawbacks will be there. For that, we need to use other techniques and we have to take precautions. I will tell you what are those. So it is safe when compared to GET. And very important, data will not be stored in browser logs. Will not be stored in browser logs. And data cannot be bookmarked. You cannot bookmark the data. And you can submit complex data. You can submit complex data. So that is a complex data like binary type data. And very important, so there is no limit for data. You can submit any amount of data. There is no limit for data. But one problem is there. So the data will not be cached. That means it is gone from memory, gone from from memory. So every time, so you have to access and use from server. This is one option. So about the post method. So that is the difference between get and post methods. You can see this happening now. I will go here. I will remove this now. I will change the method. By default, it is get method only. By default, it is get method. We haven't written any default, it is get method. You can see that actually. I'm writing method as get. Capitalization doesn't matter. You can keep capital letters, small letters, anything. It doesn't matter. So here the point is, so just observe when we configure this, okay, you see here, I will open the inspect. In the inspect, I will open, so here, network. And in the network, you can observe, so left side, when I type some details and I click on submit, you can see register is submitted. Carefully. So the request method is get, and observe here. So the data is in the query string, and you can see it says query string parameters, txt password, and John. It is there. So it is stored in the query string, and you can see in the URL itself. In the URL, you can see the data is present there. Now we will change this method from get to post. We will change to post. And when I change it to post, and here I am refreshing the page one more time, and I submitted the data and click on submit, it is submitted. But why it is showing error? Because when you submit the data, then there must be some server side technology which catches your data and uses it. Currently we don't have, but submitting is finished. There must be some server side technology which will catch your data and use it, that I will show you in later stages. Initially, submit is done, but observe here, after submitting, data is not in URL. Open this register in the right panel here, and you can see this time the method, request method is post. And you see in the URL, data is not there. I told you data will be in form body. You scroll down here, you can see that. So here, so data is in form body. You may say that we can watch this data now. Actually, we encrypt the data. So that means that is not query string. Query string means you can see in the URL. It is stored in history. This is developer view. Developer is watching what data is posted. Now you may ask, like, every client can open this and see that. That is the reason why we said it is better than get, but it is not safer yet. It is better than get, but not safer complete. Why? Because data will be exposed in various locations. A hacker can hack them. A hacker can view them actually. For that reason only, what we do is we encrypt the data. That means we will not submit the data in a clear form. We use encryption techniques. That server side you will see how we encrypt the data. By using those techniques, important data we will encrypt and we will send them, so that even the hacker see the data, he don't know what is behind this. So that is important. So the concept here is why it is showing error in this location is nothing but when you post the data. So that means who should catch the data when you are posting the data. So always use get, always use get. So here important note is always use get request method, get request method only for fetching the data from server. So and always use use post for submitting the data, and if anyone asks that can we submit on get request, already I told you, yes, you can submit on get request, but not recommended. Sometimes we submit on get request, especially when we are not dealing with any secured data. We are dealing with general data and we want it regularly used. In that case, to keep it in the buffer and access it repeatedly, we don't have any problem in the security, then we can submit that using the get request and manage that. That is what actually the concept of this get and post. That is method attribute. Method attribute specifies all these things. Syntactically, we write in this way. Syntactically, we configure in this way. That just body section I am giving you. That is how we define. So the get or post, how to configure. So currently, this is, so I don't need others in this example, just method is post. And generally, when you are dealing with get and post, when you are posting the data, where to post, we need to define a server-side location. There must be some server-side technology which can access the data. That is defined by using another attribute. That is defined by using another attribute. We have another, these are all form attributes only. Just for example's sake, I am separating into one part. Another important attribute is we have action for the form. Actually, action is nothing but it specifies the target location. So where it specifies the target location, form data. It specifies the target location to submit the form data. Usually it will be any server side page. It specifies where to submit the data. You can submit to any server side page. You can submit to any server side page. But server side pages, we haven't learned anything. So later we will learn, then we can design server side pages. Currently we have only client side. So server side pages, for example, temporarily, suppose here we have, suppose name, and here we have txt name, and here we have type as text. So on post, I am giving a method called, here I will define a page called, so hello dot some server side JSP, ASPX like this. I am using some server side ASPX like this. JSP, PHP, server side technologies. Now it is posting to this page, server side. That means there must be that page. Here I am creating hello.aspx. That is a server side page. Later you will learn server side technologies. Not now. I am just giving you a point. page language is equal to some C#, some server-side technology. Here we are defining. So doc type HTML, and we have HTML and head and the title. This is server side, and we have a body section. In the body section, we have a sentence hello. We need to collect the name coming from the client side. That means we have to, it is coming from this particular location, txt name. So we are writing some response dot write. So here we are defining request dot form, and here we are defining, so request dot, I said some query string, and I said txt name. Like this, I written some code. You don't worry about all this code. That is not required for at this level. Just I am keeping a server side page ready to catch our data and use the data. Here I am using get method. On get method, it has to submit. Actually, to run server side technologies, we need to run on our server. So that means I think our project is hosted, full stack project is hosted on IaaS, local host. So we have full stack. So in that full stack, so we have register.html. It should be hosted on server side. We don't have full stack. I will open IaaS. On IaaS, we will see our full stack is having any full stack is not there, right? Let's create one virtual direct full stack. This is all side. You will learn about that. No need to worry. Just see the output, how it actually does. Now you can see that. So this is, I entered the details. And I clicked on submit. When I clicked on submit, it is submitted to server side technology, but we are submitting currently on get request. And that server side technology have to get the data and post the data. It should get the data and post the data. So that means form action we have to define. Hello.aspx. Okay. Now let's refresh this and click submit. It is going to submit the data to this page, and that page is ready to collect the data. It is collecting the data and using the data. And you see it says hello John. We are submitting to some server side technology which is collecting and using. And what is danger part here? You are sending through get method. See what happens. It is in query string. If anybody changes the query string, txt name to David, it will update the data. Anyone can modify the data. That is why it is not good and it is not safe. Now I will do one more thing here. Suppose I am submitting this on post method, then server side technology should collect the data. This time it is not in, it is present in form body. Form body is accessed by register.html. And I entered some name, John, and I clicked submit. Then you can observe that it is submitted. It is working fine. It is not in URL. That is good. It is safe. It is not in the URL. Anyone cannot modify your data. Cannot pass the query into that. This is safe. So this is with server side integration, you have to learn how to deal and how do we configure with them. But this part is not required for you. Just you need to. So the purpose of action is to tell where to set the target. Usually it is a server technology. It will be a server side tech.
ଆଣିଲେ ଖାଇବେ ଏଇଠିକି ଆଣିଲେ ଖାଇବି।
You have
Yes,
any
sir.
doubt? Yes, what is
So
problem?
can I share my?
Yes, you can share the screen once. Yeah.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I add dialogues here, but sir, it's not working.
Dialogue requires open attribute. Na? Without open attribute, dialogue will not open. Na? It requires an attribute called open.
Sir, how?
Click inside it, dialog tag, and write space open. Open is an attribute for dialog. We learned about that. For dialog, for details. Remove the quotes and all. Just keep open.
Okay, sir.
Just keep the word open. That's it.
Sir, image is not coming here. Container.
Image also check. Dialog is working now. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Now check with the image. So spelling is SRC, not SCR. Spelling is SRC, right?
Okay, sir.
It will work.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, and I have one. Sir, when I use SRC set, then .jpg file is not open, sir.
Already told you, na, SRC set is an advanced attribute that you have to use with CSS. Advanced attributes you cannot try now, right? So we can try only basic attributes. Na?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Exercises I will provide to others, all of you. So once we finish few more topics, with the tables and forms combination, you have to design them. I will give you, right? Yeah.